You wake up to a quiet morning. No phone buzzing, no messages lighting up your screen, no plans filling the day ahead. Just you, just stillness. At first, that silence feels uncomfortable, almost like something is missing. Society has trained us to believe that if no one is reaching out, something must be wrong. If a woman isn't texting, if a friend isn't calling, maybe you're falling behind, maybe you're undesirable, maybe you're failing. That's the whisper that creeps in the one that makes men bolt from their own company. But let me ask you this. What if that silence isn't emptiness? What if it isn't punishment? What if silence itself is training? Modern psychology has shown that when solitude is chosen, it isn't loneliness at all. It becomes freedom, clarity, even strength. Researchers have found that when you reframe time alone as a chance for reflection, it lowers stress and builds resilience. The problem is that most men never let themselves reach that stage. They run from the quiet, they scroll, they chase, they perform all to avoid the one person they can't escape themselves. Yet here's the paradox. The man who can sit with his own thoughts, the man who no longer fears the stillness, becomes unshakable. He no longer needs approval, and strangely, that's when the world starts to notice him. The silence becomes his forge. Out of it rises sharper focus, deeper presence, and standards no one can shake. That's not weakness, that's danger. Because the man who doesn't fear solitude can never be controlled by it. So today we're going to uncover a truth that most of society will never tell you. The longer a man walks alone, the more his solitude becomes his power. Not because he has given up, but because he has finally chosen himself. And before we dive deeper, I want you to do something. Don't just listen, passively participate. Type these words in the comments right now. I choose solitude to forge my strength. Don't type it because it sounds good. Type it because you're tired of running, tired of chasing, tired of performing. This is your line in the sand. This is the moment you reclaim silence, not as a prison, but as a path. Section 1. Fear of silence. Most men will tell you they don't fear being alone. They'll say they're fine with it, that solitude doesn't bother them. But the truth is different. What they fear isn't the absence of people, it's the presence of truth. Silence strips away the noise that hides our regrets. When the phone is off, when the room is still, when no one is asking for your time, something else begins to speak. That voice inside, the one you've ignored for years. In the quiet memories you buried come rushing back. That relationship you sabotaged, that job you never applied for, that promise you made to yourself and broke when no one was watching. Silence opens the vault and it doesn't ask permission. Suddenly, you're sitting face to face with everything you postponed, everything you avoided. No excuses left, no distractions to hide behind. Just you and the truth. And that's terrifying for most men. So what happens? They run. They jump from woman to woman, job to job, party to party. They fill their schedules with endless activity, convincing themselves they're building something. But deep down, they're not building, they're escaping. Escaping silence, escaping themselves. That's why men fear stillness more than war, more than failure. Because in silence, there's nowhere left to hide. Psychologists call this reappraisal. It's the practice of changing the way you see your time alone. Studies show that when solitude is reframed as an opportunity, the stress of being alone drops and the benefits rise. Your blood pressure lowers, your mind clears. But you only get those benefits if you stay, if you resist the urge to bolt. And that's where most men fail, because the first phase of silence is brutal. It tightens your chest. It echoes with every insecurity you've ever carried. You're not enough. You'll be forgotten. Nothing you do matters. Those thoughts slam against your mind louder than any crowd. But here's the secret. They are echoes, not truths. Old scripts, not who you are. They knock, but you don't have to open the door. If you sit with them, if you breathe through the storm, something shifts. Clarity comes quietly without fireworks. You realize you're still here, still breathing, still capable. This is where growth begins, not in the gym, not in the self-help seminar, not even in the motivational podcast. Growth begins in stillness. Science backs this too. Mindfulness practices, simply sitting with your breath, observing without reacting, actually rewire the brain, strengthening regions tied to emotional control and resilience. Men who embrace this process become calmer under pressure, less reactive, more deliberate. And that, my friend, is real strength. Because the man who can stay seated in his own fire, who can let silence tear down his illusions without flinching, is a rare man. He doesn't crumble. He awakens. He emerges, not desperate for attention, but rooted in his own worth. That is Stoic. That is power. The world is full of men who run from silence, who keep drowning themselves in noise. But the few who stay, they are unforgettable. So here's the question for you. Will you be the man who runs again or the man who stays? Will you let silence reveal you, or will you run back to the comfort of distraction? Remember, silence is not your enemy. It's your forge. And once you pass through it, no one, not a woman, not a crowd, not society, can shake the strength you've built in stillness. Section 2. Approval Detox. Every morning, millions of men do the same ritual. They reach for their phone before they even breathe deeply. Not because they need information, but because they need validation. Did she reply? Did anyone notice me? Did someone like my post? It seems harmless, but it's not. It's a quiet addiction. Not to alcohol, not to gambling, not to drugs, but to approval. And like every addiction, it takes more from you than it ever gives. Here's the science. Social media and constant digital feedback are built like slot machines. Stanford researchers have shown that unpredictable rewards, likes, notifications, messages create dopamine spikes the same way gambling does. You keep pulling the lever, checking the feed, chasing that hit. And the more you chase it, the less control you actually have. Over time, the brain rewires. Your worth becomes tied to the next buzz, the next ding. You're not choosing, you're craving. That's why so many men shrink. Approval seeking makes you smaller than you are. You laugh when you don't find it funny. You say yes when your soul is screaming no. You water down your opinions just to blend in. You're not protecting yourself, you're betraying yourself. And what makes this trap so dangerous is its invisibility. No one stages an intervention when you're addicted to approval. No one tells you to check into rehab. But slowly, you decorate a prison with compliments and applause, and you know you're stuck. Here's the turning point. Like any addiction, you can detox. Researchers ran a trial where participants cut their screen time for just 3 weeks. The results: lower stress, better sleep, fewer depressive symptoms, and an increase in overall well-being. Think about that. 3 weeks, not years, not a lifetime. Just 3 weeks of reclaiming your attention shifted their mental health. Imagine what it could do for you. Detox doesn't start with throwing your phone away. It starts with boundaries. Stop checking it first thing in the morning. Stop reshaping your words to match the room. Stop laughing at things that insult your intelligence. And instead, ask yourself the hardest question. Am I doing this because I believe it or because I want to be liked? That one question can split your life in two. The man you are now and the man you could become. At first, it feels like withdrawal. Your body wants the hit, the laugh, the nod of approval. You'll feel the silence. You'll hear that voice whispering, what if they don't like me anymore? But stay with it. Sit in the discomfort. Breathe through it. Because discomfort isn't death, it's proof you're breaking the cycle. Slowly, a different voice will rise. Not loud, not desperate, but steady. Your voice. The one that doesn't beg to be heard, but speaks because it must. And then the paradox hits. When you stop needing to be seen, you become impossible to ignore. Men who chase attention blend in. Men who choose themselves stand out. Not by volume, not by force, but by presence. Your energy shifts. People sense the weight in your silence, the steadiness in your eyes. You don't have to demand respect. You carry it. And that's the kind of man others remember. But don't be fooled. Approval detox comes with a price. You will lose fake friends. You will watch shallow connections fade. You'll face the discomfort of standing alone in rooms where you once performed. That's not weakness, that's cleansing. What you lose is surface level applause. What you gain is everything on your peace, your identity, your freedom. So ask yourself right now, are you still living to be liked, still adjusting yourself to make others comfortable, or are you ready to choose yourself? Because once you do once, you really do, the world changes. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You stop explaining. You simply become. And when that happens, life doesn't ask if you're worthy. Life listens. Section 3, Clarity through Solitude. There comes a moment in every man's life when the noise begins to fade, not because the world has changed, but because he finally chooses to step away from it. No more constant checking, no more endless conversations that drain, no more rushing from one distraction to another. Just stillness. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. For the first time in years, the fog lifts. Not because he found the right crowd, but because he stopped listening to the crowd altogether. This is solitude, not isolation. Isolation is when you feel cut off, abandoned, invisible. Solitude is chosen. And when it's chosen, it becomes restoration. Studies with older adults show that solitude, when embraced willingly, can protect mental health, sharpen perspective, and restore peace. That's the gift men miss when they fear being single too long. They mistake solitude for punishment when in fact it is training. In solitude, you begin to peel away everything that isn't really you. The career you chased because someone else said it was success. The relationships you clung to out of fear of being alone. The routines you followed simply because everyone else did. In solitude, the voices dim and the real questions surface. What energizes me? What drains me? Who do I become around certain people? And do I even like that man? These are questions no crowd will ever answer for you. They can only be faced in quiet. But here's the paradox: society will call you a red flag. They'll say the longer you stay single, the more suspicious you look. Yet the truth is the opposite. You're not a red flag. You're a torch, burning on your own terms, refining yourself in fire. And when you carry that fire back into the world, people notice, not because you begged for it, but because your presence demands it. Of course, solitude has its dangers. Researchers have shown that chronic loneliness, when men feel cut off and unloved, can raise the risk of illness and even shorten life expectancy. That's why balance matters. Solitude doesn't mean exile. It doesn't mean you cut everyone off. It means you build a small circle that reflects your values instead of a noisy crowd that confuses them. A few true friends. A community that respects your path. That balance is the shield against the dark side of loneliness. Think about the man in the comments who said he was 82 years old, had lived alone his whole life, and loved his freedom. That's not emptiness, that's alignment. He didn't spend decades shrinking himself to fit expectations. He lived on his own terms. And it shows us something profound. Solitude, when embraced, doesn't weaken a man, it sustains him. And here's where clarity comes in. In solitude, your routines begin to match your values. You no longer wake up just to survive the day. You wake up with direction. Your mornings have purpose. Your circle reflects who you are becoming, not who you used to be. You cut ties not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You stop pretending you're fine with what feels wrong. You stop lying to yourself to avoid discomfort. You begin to live aligned, not perfect, but honest, not polished, but real. From that place, your voice deepens, your standards rise, and suddenly, life doesn't feel like a performance anymore. You don't have to explain yourself to people who are never listening. You don't have to chase anyone to stay relevant. You simply live and your life speaks for itself. That is the man society can't ignore, not because he shouted, but because he was steady, not because he demanded attention, but because he carried presence. So if your world feels quiet right now, don't panic. That silence isn't emptiness, it's an invitation. It's life asking you to slow down to meet the man you've ignored for too long yourself. The man who walks alone isn't broken. He's rebuilding. He's burning away everything that doesn't belong until what remains is immovable, unshakable, clear. And when you become that man, something shifts. The wrong people drift away. The right ones find their way to you. Opportunities no longer need to be chased, they align. Not because you manipulated the world, but because you finally mastered yourself. That's not magic, that's mastery. Key takeaway. Here's the truth most men never hear. Growth doesn't happen in the noise, it begins in the silence. The man who learns to sit with himself, who no longer chases approval, who embraces solitude as training, becomes unshakable. Society may label him a red flag, but in reality, he is a foundation stone, immovable, steady, and clear. The paradox is simple. The moment you stop needing others to validate your worth, that's when they finally recognize it, because presence cannot be faked, confidence cannot be borrowed, clarity cannot be performed. They are forged in the stillness of solitude, and they belong to the man who chose himself. So if you remember nothing else, remember, this solitude is not your prison. It is your forge. And the longer you stay with it, the stronger, sharper, and more unforgettable you become. If this message struck something inside you, don't just scroll on. Act. Right now, write in the comments, I choose solitude to forge my strength. This isn't just a phrase, it's a declaration, a line in the sand. By typing it, you're joining a brotherhood of men across the world who are done running, done performing, done chasing. Now, tell me one more thing. Drop in the comments. What's one distraction you're ready to let go of today? Maybe it's the endless scrolling. Maybe it's the approval of people who don't matter. Maybe it's the noise you've been using to drown out your own voice. Write it, claim it, and let the act of naming it be your first step toward freedom. And if this resonated with you, if you're ready to stop chasing popularity and start forging clarity, discipline, and quiet strength, hit like, subscribe, and stay with us. Because here at the Stoic Spirit, we don't chase approval. We create men who lead from the inside out. And today that includes you.